all Jews, we all can learn from this amazing, amazing gift that Aaron was given. God never separates us from us. No matter how impure a person has been or is, it never is an excuse to give up. There's always where to grow from. Every single little addition that a person adds. Later on in this week's Parashat, the Torah discusses the prohibition of lending or borrowing money with interest. It is important to note that the prohibition of borrowing or lending with interest is, as I said, it's whether you are the borrower or the lender. Both sides are prohibited of doing any business interaction with interest. Now, I'll just give a little bit of a prelude of the basic laws. This is only when both parties are Jewish, when both the borrower and the lender are Jewish. The reason why we have this law, again, number one, like all laws, is because God said so, and that's why we do it. But to understand maybe a greater depth of the law is because God wanted us to do for others that we'd like to do for ourselves. And if any one of us, any Jew, would be in need or would like a loan in order to progress in their business, or if they're going through a tough time, they would like to be loaned the money without interest, and therefore lend your fellow brothers and sisters without interest as well. There are cases where there are permissions to lend or borrow with interest. For example, if you're taking a mortgage from a private individual and he's Jewish or she's Jewish, or you're lending, even any type of loan, whether there's a collateral taken or not, generally speaking, there should be no interest in the interaction. However, if there is a need to have interest being done, there is a way to do it, and it is called a heter iska. Heter iska is translated as a permission to conduct business. Now, what does that mean? I'll give a quick example. If you have Avraham who comes over to Yitzhak, and Avraham tells Yitzhak, my friend, I need you to lend me $100,000. Yitzhak says, no problem, but I have to charge you 5%. I normally charge 10, but because you are a fellow Jew, I need to charge 5. How do we do this according to the Torah? Well, if Avraham agrees to it because he really needs the money, there's a way to do it. The way to do it is as follows. It's a loophole. Now, I know when people hear the word loophole, they get very scared. Oh, loophole is a loophole and it's really a fake. No, there are valid loopholes in our law system. The Talmud speaks about it. And this is one of them. Even though we taking it as an interaction of Avraham is borrowing from Yitzhak $100,000, and at the end of the year he's going to pay him $105,000, so we look at that as interest. When you make this halachic document of a heter iska, what it turns it to is that Avraham and Yitzhak are becoming partners in whatever business Avraham's going to do with that $100,000. Now, whether he uses that to buy a house, or to buy a business, or to create a business, or anything that he does with it, they are now becoming partners with it. But Isaac, Yitzhak, is a silent partner. All he wants is his 5%. Whether the guy makes 10%, 20%, 100%, 500% on the money that he gave, all he wants is 5%. And therefore, it's called a heter iska because they are now coming as business partners, and it's not as a loan transaction. And that is the loophole, as I'll say it, to allow lending or borrowing money with interest if there are no other ways to do it. However, it is a tremendous, tremendous mitzvah to lend without interest. It's one of the greatest mitzvot. It is really, really a beautiful mitzvah to lend money without interest. It needs to be done the proper way. It should be done with either a shtar, as we say, with a document. It doesn't need to be a legal document, with a document with edim, or a collateral taken in the proper way, that this way it will not lead to chas v'shalom anyone cheating each other. But it is a tremendous mitzvah to lend without interest, and if not, That's what the Heter Iska document is for. Now, the Talmud tells us, when it's speaking to us about the merit of giving tzedakah, that God actually lends those, He lends money to those who do mitzvot with the money God lends them. And He keeps on lending them more and more and more. And that is to mean, one who spends on Shabbat and the holidays and their sukkah and their lulav and etrog and their matzah and everything that has to do with mitzvot and their tefillin and their tzitzit, all of the beautiful things, all the mitzvot, and those who give charity to the needy, God keeps on giving and lending and more and more and more. The Talmud quotes the pasuk in Mishle that says, Malveh Adonai honen dal, he who is gracious to a poor man lends to the Lord, ugmulo yishalem lo, and He, God, will repay him with His reward. Which is a very cryptic verse, as Shlomo HaMelech wrote dozens and dozens of them. Yet this one, at a practical level, so we don't get too into it, is saying that God keeps on giving and lending and rewarding those who take that gift of money to do mitzvot with it. The Zera Shimshon says, this seems like an issue of interest. It seems like God is giving something to someone and He's rewarding them for lending Him money. It's like God gives a person money, the person does mitzvot with it, and then Hashem gives more to them. That seems like interest. What's the issue? Talmud tells us that God Himself keeps the Torah. All the laws in Torah, in His own divinity, keeps the Torah. And He kept it even before the Torah was given to the Jewish people. So God, who keeps the Torah and is not allowed to lend or borrow with interest to Jews, how could He do that? The Zera Shimshon asks. It's a little bit of a weird type of question, but listen to his answer. He says, by quoting the Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch is the codified Jewish law written by Rabbeinu Yosef Karo, who was the greatest in his time, we could put it that way, 500 years ago. Says as follows, that the law of lending and borrowing with ribit, with interest, is prohibited, yet permitted to a Torah scholar who borrows something from someone. He's allowed to repay with interest or return with interest. Why? Why a Torah scholar? What's the difference? He says because a Torah scholar knows that you're not allowed to repay with interest. So, by him giving more, he's giving it as a gift and not interest. Yet that's all the time not allowed, but by a Torah scholar who has an intention that when he's giving it, it's definitely not interest, rather it's a gift, that is permitted. And furthermore, that's one, so gift is the first. Second is, it's only allowed to be an amount or an item which is so small that could be given as a gift. For example, people give $100, $200, $300, $400 gifts, but no one gives $5,000 gifts or $10,000 gifts. So even if a Torah scholar would borrow $1 million from somebody, they wouldn't be able to, without the Heter Iska obviously, they wouldn't be able to give them $1 million and another $10,000. That's not a gift. That's already getting into ribit, already into interest. Okay? So two things. First of all, if it's a complete gift, it's not an issue. Second of all, if it's something small, it's also not an issue of interest. Now, coming back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when any Jew gives to God by spending on mitzvot or giving charity, we are completely doing it as a gift to God, as a gift to being able to help those who need the help. And therefore, the Zera Shimshon says it's not an interest. And vice versa. He says, when God gives us the reward He gives us is only a fraction of the grand reward that we deserve. As we read in the Korbanot every day, that we get the perot ba'olam hazeh. We get the interest of the reward in this world and merit. But the grand merit of the whole field is in the world to come. So twofold. Number one, it's only given as a gift. And number two, it's a very small amount of reward God is giving us for lending us money in order to do. With this, I will add to the Zera Shimshon and just say something very basic that almost all of us know already. That out of all of the mitzvot that God has given us, we are not allowed to challenge God on any of them. It is absolutely prohibited. It's a lack of honor and respect. Who are we to challenge God? One is not allowed to say, well, if I keep Shabbat, or if I keep Kashrut, I would like this, this, and this from God. We're never allowed to do that. There's one mitzvah. God tells us, not only are you allowed to, you could, no problem, test me on, God says. As it says, Bahanuni bezot. Test me with this one. Which are we talking about? Giving charity. God says that if you give your charity, you cannot become poor from giving charity. It goes contrary to our thought process. It's contrary to accounting. If I have X amount and I give charity, I have less. It's just fact. If I have 10 and I give 1 away, I'm left with 9. That's why it's such a big test. But all of us who have tested it out and know that the more you give, the more you get. It's not just a saying, it's a fact of life. God is the one who has the key to our success and our parnasah. So we have the Yetzer Hara telling us if you give, you're minusing. But if we were 100% rational and believing in what God tells us, we would understand that if we give, we're really gaining. The relationship of charity between us and God is as follows. And with this, I'll end this part. He says, Chachamim tell us, God comes to us and He says, hey, you want me to be your business partner? Now, who wouldn't want God as their business partner? Brings blessing, brings good luck, brings everything. Like, what better can one bring to the table than having God as their partner in anything? In their medical office, in their real estate company, in their construction company, in God knows what. Greatest partner. God said, I'll be your partner just like any other partner, but I need my cut. You know what my cut is? 10%. Don't jip me on my cut, because if you don't involve me in the business, I'm a silent partner. I'm silent, I just throw blessing your way. But throw me back my 10%. If you don't, we won't have a deal. That's exactly the way it works. And unfortunately, the great test of greed, of not wanting to give, very often overcomes. And again, we'll repeat. The Chachamim tell us, if every Jew would only give 10%, not 11, not 12, 10% per Jew of profits to charity, there will not be one needy Jew on the face of this earth. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless us that when it comes to the test of greed and the test of accounting, to realize that even though right now it's -1, it's -10%, it's really adding and giving more and more blessing to us. The merit of the Zera Shimshon, the merit of learning our Parashat.